So, now we are going to start with the classic iron carbon phase diagram. Basic idea is to discuss both steels and the cast iron, because they are the two important materials world produces. I would like to tell you that steel is the second largest material we use in the world after concrete, and cast iron, being from the same family as iron carbon alloy, has the lion's share in automobile industry. So, therefore, it is very important that you know about these materials, but before you know the materials, the basic aspect of these alloys, both steel and the cast iron, is related to the iron carbon phase diagram. You know, iron carbon phase diagram has normally presented as incomplete phase diagram, and that is what I am going to discuss first to you. So, let me just take you through a tour of iron carbon phase diagram. Okay. So, as you see here, this is the whole iron carbon phase diagram, which you have never seen in your life probably. What is there here? Okay. As you know, iron has three phases in the room at normal pressure. First one is alpha phase, which is stable up to 911 degrees Celsius temperature, specifically 911.5 degrees Celsius temperature. The next one is a gamma phase, which is stable up to 1394 degrees Celsius temperature. Then you have a delta phase here, which is not shown, delta phase, okay, which is not shown here. This is what is your delta phase, not shown here. Delta is a BCC structure. Alpha also has a BCC structure. So, alpha, gamma, delta, then it is from liquid, then it is from vapor. That is how thing happens for the iron as you increase temperature. Okay. So, at room temperature, alpha is magnetic, and you know that alpha, which is basically very stable phase at room temperature, normal pressure, can undergo ferromagnetic to paramagnetic transitions, and the Q temperature is something like 768 degrees Celsius temperature. And this temperature can vary as a function of compositions of iron. So, therefore, this temperature is known as A2 point. A2 is the magnetic to paramagnetic transition of alpha. So, I can write down for alpha phase A2 is basically alpha to alpha, this is ferro to paramagnetic. This is the A2 temperature point. Why you use these symbols A1, A2, A3, A4 or ACM is because the temperature may change based on the composition of the material. Now, alpha to gamma transformation also depends on composition of carbon, that we will see later. So, that is normally given as A3 point. So, alpha to gamma transformation is known as A3, okay, and gamma to delta, this transformation is also known as A4 point. Okay. So, A2, A3, A4, there is another temperature called ACM, which we will see later. So, as you understand, there are basically three solid phases, alpha, gamma and delta, and liquid and vapor phase, and these things are actually the vapor phase diagram of iron and carbon. That is 1 atmospheric pressure, 0.1 atmospheric pressure, 0.01 atmospheric pressure, and this all happens at a very high temperature. So, these are not important to us. What is important to us is this part. Now, not only that, you know, iron carbon phase diagram is plotted always by temperature versus, this is temperature axis, temperature versus weight percent of carbon normally, and it can go up to maximum 6.67% of carbon. This is the point for 6.67% of weight percent of carbon. Why? Because there is a compound which forms if you add carbon into iron, and the compound is known as Fe3C or cementite, and this compound contains about 6.67% of carbon, beyond which whatever happens in the phase diagram is not important for any metallurgist. It is only important for theoreticians, but not for any metallurgist or material scientist, because that particular domain of phases which forms there is not at all used in the real applications, because they are extremely brittle. So, therefore, all our concentrations will be carbon concentration from 0 to 6.6 weight percentage. Specifically, our concentration will be 0 to 4.5 weight percent of carbon. not even more than that. So, what is there? That is what is we should know. Now, for any phase diagram, as I told you, first of all you should know the phases present, that I have discussed. So, you have alpha, gamma, delta Rn, 3 solution phases present, and then you have a compound called Fe3C present. So, there are 4 phases present. Please keep remembering these things. And then obviously you have liquid phase, which is universally present in any phase diagrams. So, but as we are discussing with solid state reactions, liquid is not important to us, solid phases are important to us. So, these are the 4 solid phases, alpha, gamma, delta and Fe3C. Second important thing is the reactions. So, any phase diagram, a reaction can be detected by looking at a horizontal line or a line which is parallel to the compositional axis. As you see, there are 2 or 3 horizontal lines here, one is here, one is there, and third one is there. Each one of these correspond to a reaction. But you know that these 2 lines, the higher temperatures, they corresponding to reactions involved in liquid phase. Like this reaction, I already discussed with you, is an Eutectoid reactions leading to formation of gamma plus graphite or gamma plus cementite, depending on what kind of cast iron we are going to use, which we will discuss when we come back to the cast iron family. This one, which is a peritectic reactions, happens at about 1495 degrees Celsius temperature, okay. And in this reaction, delta and liquid reacts and form gamma iron. This is only important for stainless steels or IF steels which contains very low amount of carbon. So, sometime means after few classes I will concentrate on that and tell you what are the issues of that. The important reactions which we must consider and discuss is this last line at 727 degrees Celsius temperature, what is known as A1 temperature, which I have not discussed, this A1 temperature line. And this is the reaction which is the Eutectoid reactions I told you in the last class, gamma going to alpha plus Fe3C. This is what happens if you cool it down at below 727 degrees Celsius temperature for gamma iron. Remember, this temperature is also function of compositions. So, therefore, we always use A1 temperature, A1 as a symbol to detect this temperature. This can vary depending on the concentration of the alloying elements and many other stuffs. Okay. So, therefore, this is the reaction we should concentrate. Now, as I told you, this is a Eutectoid reactions, and Eutectoid reaction is basically has similarity to the Eutectic reactions. Eutectic reaction is L going to alpha plus gamma beta. So, 2 solid phases form directly from 1 liquid phase. So, similarly in Eutectoid reactions, gamma phase, which is solid phase, transform to 2 solid phases. So, 2 solid phases directly comes from a single solid phase, and this is the important things in steels. Because of these reactions, we form a particular species known as pearlite, and that pearlite gives you strength. So, let me take you through the pearlite after. So, you probably have understood the different parts of the phase diagrams. As you see here, other than that, this is a 2 phase field region, which is alpha plus Fe3C. This is a 2 phase region, gamma plus Fe3C, L plus gamma, L plus Fe3C, okay, and then there are gamma plus delta, one region will be there. So, there are 4 2 phase field regions, and there are alpha plus gamma also, 5 2 phase field regions, remember, sorry, and then you have alpha, gamma and delta, and liquid 4 single phase regions. That is all. In addition to that, I have given you alpha plus C, gamma plus C, okay, L plus C, and also dotted lines in these diagrams. Please understand that Fe3C in iron carbon system is a metastable phase. Metastable phase means it is not the energetically most stable phase. It has higher free energy than the stable phase. And what is the stable phase? It is a graphite. If you add carbon in large quantity and cool it slowly, you are going to form a graphite or carbon directly from the liquid or from the solid gamma also, because of the problems in nucleation and growth of Fe3C when you have certain conditions satisfied. So, that is why these dotted lines corresponding to that gamma equilibrium, the equilibrium between carbon and iron, pure carbon means graphite and iron, and the solid lines correspond to equilibrium between Rn and Fe3C. Okay. So, if you consider carbon, then this phase diagram should extend up to 100% carbon, not stop at 6.67% carbon, but it is not interesting beyond 6.67% carbon when you consider equilibrium between Rn and graphite, even if you consider that. So, basically all the important ingredients I told you are there, and I just want to tell you as a metallurgist or as a materials engineer, you must remember this phase diagram. Even if you forget most of the things of the course, but this phase diagram should be at your tips. You must be able to draw it, which I will do in the next class, and also you must be able to explain different zones of the phase diagram the way I told you, way I discussed with you. So, as I told you, let us first discuss these transformations of which is known as Eutectoid transformations. But you know, alpha is a BCC structure, gamma is a FCC structure, very simple, but cementite has orthorhombic structure, it is a complex structure. I do not want to scare you, but please remember that this is an orthorhombic structure, is a complex structure. Here you can see these blue atoms are iron atoms and these yellow atoms are carbon atoms, and they are octahedrally bonded. Okay, you can see the octahedra, correct. So, inside the octahedra some carbon atom has gone, and each the corners of the octahedron are actually you have iron atoms, but this is what the structure of cementite. In fact, because of this complex structure, cementite is a very hard and brittle phase. Okay. So, now let us look at the microstructure first. Pearlite, which you have probably heard, pearlite what comes from the thing known as pearl, which we use we normally grow from the oyster shells, and this pearlites are used as a jewelry. So, these microstructures looks like a pearl, that is why it is called pearlite. In long back in England, when this was studied, they saw this microstructure under optical microscope, and they saw this as a pearlitic luster or a pearlitic color, basically looks like a pearlite or looks like a pearl, that is why it is known as pearlite. Light means small. So, pearlite consisting of two phases, as I told you, alpha and Fe3C. So, these white regions are basically alpha and this is Fe3C. Remember, alpha is not a pure iron, alpha is a solute solution of carbon in iron. And what is this type of solute solution? It is a interstitial solute solution in which carbon atom goes to the interstitial places in the alpha. So, alpha is a BCC structure. So, there are two types of interstitial sites, one is octahedral, other one is tetrahedral. So, carbon can go into one of these sites or both, depends on what kind of structure it has or the size of carbon atoms, and form a solute solution. But alpha contains very low amount of carbon, you know, at 727 degrees Celsius temperature, carbon concentration alpha is very low, 0.02% carbon or 0.025% weight percent of carbon. Room temperature alpha is virtually free of carbon, very little amount of carbon present, you can say ppm level carbon is present. So, that is why alpha is most of the time confused to be a pure iron or a solute solution. Remember, alpha here is a solute solution of carbon in alpha BCC iron at room temperature, okay, normally. And Fe3C is a intermetallic phase or intermediate phase or a compound, the fixed stoichiometry 3:1, or it contains about 6.61% carbon and rest of the thing is iron. So, real microstructure will be like this, it looks like exactly like a eutectic microstructure. Okay. Eutectic microstructure will have lamellae of alpha and beta phases. Similarly, these are called alpha lamellae and the Fe3C lamellae. All these dark colored things which are like this I am drawing are Fe3C, white thing is alpha. This is actually a mixture of very hard phase Fe3C with alpha, which is a ductile phase, and because of this mixture, which is known as a composite, in situ composite, steel has wonderful mechanical physical properties, and that is why steel is better than none. Okay. So, it is better than everything, sorry, it is better than everything, any other material you see in the real picture, steel is better than anything you see in the world, material world. and this is the reason, because this structure is so important. Now one can actually control the spacings of these two lamellae very easily and control the mechanical properties by different processing. Okay, now in a TM or transmission electron microscope, these lamellae can be very seen nicely. You can see here these thicker ones are alpha, these are alpha phase, the black one which I am drawing by arrow are basically Fe3C, correct. So, and this dimension is 500 nanometers. So, that means the distance between alpha to alpha is about couple of 100 nanometers, and you can control this distance. By controlling this distance, you can control the mechanical properties. That is the beauty of this. And I am showing you many other pictures, because this is just like a eutectic morphology in solid state. Okay, now you know, while discussing these things, I must bring to a point that in the eutectoid transformations, the most important thing is the gamma phase austenite. After giving you a description of phase diagram and also little bit of microstructural features of cement as a pearlite, I just wanted to go back and tell you what are the host of microstructure which we can obtain in a steel and how we can do that. That is the basic purpose of this slide. So, our base microstructure is austenite, which is gamma phase. We call it austenite, basically coming from a name of a scientist. So, austenite is a gamma phase. You can see here these are the austenite grains, single phase, and if you cool it very slowly below the eutectoid transformation temperature, you can form pearlite. Pearlite is what? Pearlite is a lamellar morphology, having a lamellar morphology consisting of alpha solution and Fe3C. White color thing is alpha, black color thing is Fe3C. Now this will happen if you cool it very slowly or cool it normally. Suppose if you take a sample gamma, which is austenite, and from that austenitic phase you drop it into a bucket full of water, it will get quenched, like you quench your thirst in summer day, hot day. So similarly this sample also will get quenched in water. What is the meaning of quenching? Meaning of quenching is that gamma phase will all of a sudden get cooled down to room temperature from high temperature, because as you know gamma iron is stable only above 720-70 Celsius temperature for carbon concentration higher than 0 or so, carbon concentration higher than 0.8 actually weight percent carbon, but normally it is a high temperature phase. So if you quench from 727 or higher than that temperature to room temperature by dropping in water, that is what is known as quenching. And if you do that, we will get a different product, what is known as martensite. Martensite is a single phase structure unlike pearlite, but it consisting of needles of martensite, correct. So you can see here the same structure can be bypassed by quenching or cooling rapidly, and we can obtain a different kind of structure called as martensite. Martensite is accidental discovery which we will discuss in detail when we talk about it. It was discovered by Martens in Germany long back accidentally. Martensite is a very hard and brittle phase, and it forms by quenching. So therefore it will have a lot of stress inbuilt in it. Now third thing which is important, which has come into forefront, very important for steel metallurgy, is known as bainite. So now question is that even if you cool slowly, you form pearlite by slow cooling, which is a mostly diffusion control phase transformations, where gamma transform into Fe3C and alpha by diffusion process, and if you quench fast, there will be no diffusion, you will form martensite. In between, suppose you cool the gamma fast enough and keep it at 400-500 Celsius temperature, 350-400 Celsius temperature for long time, just like a while bath, you cool it from 900-950 Celsius temperature, gamma is stable, directly to 350 Celsius temperature and keep it there for a long time. What you will get is known as the bainite, and bainite here I am showing is a fiery like structure. It is like a leaf, tree leaf, in which you can see tree leaf is consisting of alpha and Fe3C. So, difference between this pearlite and benite is that in pearlite you have basically this lamellar structure, in benite you have this tree like structure or some other structures possible which we will discuss. It is so far not clear how this structure forms, what is the basic mechanism of formation of this structure. That is why I put this point of interrogation here. So, as what you understand from this slide, you understand that in steel I can take austenite and just varying the process parameters little bit from left to right, I can create 3 different type of structures, and each of these structure will have different physical and mechanical properties. This is the beauty of metallurgy. You can take same phase, cool it differently and create 3 different microstructures. That is why it is so interesting. Steel is so important and interesting aspect of things. Okay. So, I will just go back now to the phase diagram. Now, the important thing which we should understand, which I am going to do in the next class in detailed manner, how this eutectoid transformation happens. But before that, whatever time I have in this class, I would like to tell you 3 important aspects. As you know, this eutectoid reactions which I have written as alpha plus Fe3C, in which 2 solid phases form directly from one solid phase, as I told you repeatedly. One of the solid phase is a very soft alpha iron, other one is a very hard compound Fe3C. So, therefore, this is nothing but in situ composite between a soft phase and a hard phase. Composite means what? Bamboo is a composite, it has fibers and a soft lignin phase. So, that is a very hard and tough material. So, because of presence of these 2 phases, one is hard and brittle and very high strength, other one is soft alpha, and because of well mixture, very nice mixture of these 2, we get an interesting physical and mechanical properties of steel, and that is why steel is can be used for many applications. Now, as I told you that this reaction is basically governed by diffusion of carbon. This is a diffusion control reaction, as you see. So, we can control this reaction by controlling the diffusion of carbon. So, that means we can change this pearlitic lamellar distance by changing the diffusion, by controlling the process such that diffusion of carbon can be controlled, and by doing that we can actually control the mechanical properties, because strength of this particular mixture depends on the distance between these 2. Basically, this parameter called interlamellar spacing in eutectoid or eutectoid transformation, distance from one center of the lamellae to the other center of the lamellae. So, the way I have drawn is wrong. So, this will be like this. Suppose if I take center of this lamellae as center of this lamellae, this is what is lambda. So, by controlling, or rather I can tell you here, center of this lamellae Fe3C as center of the alpha, and this distance is known as lambda. So, by controlling this lambda, we can actually control its mechanical properties. That is another beauty of pearlitic microstructure. So, with this I just I want to tell you that I have given you very brief or salient, deep and salient description of the iron carbon phase diagram, which is important for you to understand. We will come back and forth for this phase diagram, because we need to discuss many important issues, but what you should take away from the lecture is that the phase diagram is very important for controlling the microstructure of steel. You must not forget. So, therefore, it is for your own interest that you understand that phase diagram very nicely, and obviously related to the different reactions. Okay.